Football with friends is fun as hell. My name is Alex Dunlap. Oh gosh, man, I'm pumped to be here today with Cody Carpentier as we are entering into week 2 of the new Football with Friends time slot here, 6 p.m. Central. So happy to see you guys here piling into the chat. Bunch to get to today, man. We have Cody. We had practice earlier today. I got a whole grip of old school handwritten notes that we can talk about. I actually got to see a 2-minute team period today, which was super, super cool. But we have some observations from that, some kind of big observations. Well, they're big. They're big to me, and I think that they would probably be big to a lot of the maniacal listeners and viewers here on Orange Bloods Live. As far as a couple depth chart things. And then we also have Steve Sarkisian met with the media after practice, and I've been kind of running around ever since I posted my column up there on orangebloods.com, and I have not read Anwar's complete breakdown of it. So I'll be kind of going through them as we sort of go through it. I don't even know, brother. There's so much to get to. Don't even know where to start. I guess I should ask you right off the. I mean, we're going to get right into football. We always do. We hate chitter chatter and small talk to start shows. But I got to ask you: has that tropical storm got to where you are yet? When is that thing getting there?
It's begun. Yesterday we went and my landlord came down because there's 2 houses on the property anyway. We went out and got some sand last night, so I think we bagged up about 20 bags of sand to cover around some doors because whether we get 12 inches or 30 inches, we're in the low country, so everybody's getting flooded to a certain extent. So, but yeah, it started raining today, I think about 10, 11 o'clock, and it really hasn't stopped. So
did he knock some money off your rent for helping him bag all that sand?
No. I brought him some beers, so I'm a good tenant. We'll just put it that way.
You're just there trying to close out that move ring without having to go to the gym or go walk the trail.
Right.
Yeah. All right. What do you think? Do you want to start out with Sark's press conference stuff, or you want to start out with some notes from practice?
No, I want to start with your notes from practice because I know you probably didn't see my comment down here, but I'm going to jump to the guy in the thumbnail, which is Jelani McDonald. I got to ask you 2 questions about Jelani McDonald and about this defensive tackle thing on the second team. I just want to hear how that kind of came to and what your analysis really is of this rotation at safety, because the way I kind of took it, the way I took a lot of these notes today, and you can go get them all over at Orange Bloods right now. I believe the deal expires tonight at midnight. So you can go over to orangebloods.com today. 60
Is that thing still going?
Join OB24. Yeah, it expires tonight at midnight per catch earlier. That's at least what he said. So I'm going to throw that up there right there. But Alex's notes are up. Anwar's notes are up. The pictures are up from Jason. But the overwhelming feel that I got on all of these pieces was not that like it matters that these guys were working on these other teams, more so that they were just trying to see what people looked like together. Like they wanted to put Jelani on the other team. But they also put Makuba with Derek Williams, which they already had done.
Let's tell people what happened. Jelani McDonald was and Michael Taft were the 2 safeties with the 1s today, and Derek Williams was with the 2s. And that's what we're talking about here.
But that's with Makuba, though. That's what I'm saying. Like in the context of it, my question is, I guess, across other positions, was there the same kind of delegation, I guess, of resources? Like, did they move a lot of, like, at cornerback, did they make any adjustments? At linebacker, were there any adjustments, or was it just safety and defensive tackle? That should be my question.
Okay, so with the first group today, I started noticing some stuff, and like, we kind of the media has to kind of gather around Red River, across from the field. And so pre-practice, you can see them going through some practice team looks and stuff. And I did notice something weird with the defensive line, even in that portion, because I made a note saying like, oh, that's odd. Savea was working with Sadir Mitchell. And I said, okay, so does that mean Sadir Mitchell's working with the 2s today? Yeah. Or does that mean that but Savea wouldn't be going from working to the 2s to working with the 4s with Sadir. But so then what I did is I looked at the corners and I saw, okay, well, the corners are Javion Cole and I forget who it was, either 24 or 27. I get those 2 guys mixed up. What's that? Wardell Mack and who's 20?
Warren Robinson.
Yeah, Warren Robertson. So one of those two, and then the linebacker was that was the Ty Anthony Smith or the Darian Gillette group, right? The Darian Gillette group. And it's like, wait, that's the threes. So Sadir's with the threes and Savea's with the threes. Well, I wonder what that means for the twos, right? And I wonder what it means for the fours. And so we get into practice, and with the other kind of the other thing that I noticed right off the bat was that, yeah, so with the second defensive line, and we'll go back and we'll like break down what each of these things means. But with the second defensive line, that was Alex January and it was Jermaine Lole. And Lole had been working next to Bill Norton, who'd been with the threes for everything that we'd seen before. So it's just and look, I think as it pertains to the defensive line, for one, January looks like he I mean,
Looks like
if
he
you just
belongs.
if you just like, I mean, obviously today it was a little bit more as far as, pads were. I mean, at least they had shoulder pads and helmets and stuff, right? Like they weren't full pads yet, but at least there was some thumping around to be done. There was some contact at the line of scrimmage during the team period. There was actual, hand fighting and blocking in the trenches and all this stuff like that, right? But I from everything I saw, like January, at least from a physical standpoint, the way his body looks and stuff like that, there's not it didn't like you look at him and you say that guy doesn't look like he should be a college defensive tackle or a college nose tackle. So he looks fine. I still would like to see sort of how he holds up through a couple of plays that I can, it's like they get into that 2-minute offense. And dude, the thing about it is that 2-minute offense, dude, that thing is fast. That's another thing we should put a pin in and sort of just talk about how that looked, what they're doing with that stuff. But yeah, I so with the twos, that was Ethan Burke in the same. Ethan Burke is backing up Barryn Sorrell.
Yep. Well, we already knew that based on
last but I mean, it's like now when it's gone this far, it's like that's the truth. Jalen Gilbo's the starting nickel. That's the truth. Yeah. All this stuff is just true now. I mean,
I don't think it was never. You never had worry that Sorrell was going to lose that job to Burke, though, did like?
Well, I don't know. I mean, we went through a whole spring where I said, I'm like, why aren't they having Sorrell and Burke split the reps over at that strong side defensive end? Like. What are they doing? They got Trey Moore. They got Colin Simmons. They got these other dudes. Like, what are they doing? So, anyway, so it was.
So where did Aaron Bryant fall to?
Well, they only did the red zone stuff with the ones and the twos.
Okay, so they didn't.
I'm sorry, the 2-minute stuff with the ones and the twos. That's all we saw as far as team. Ones versus ones, twos versus twos. So
you said Sadir and Savea were on the third team.
Yeah, but that was just in the pre-practice kind of stuff.
So that's some walkthrough stuff. Gotcha.
And it's weird that those two are together, but maybe it's not. I don't know. Maybe Sadir's like I told you, man. Like I think Sadir's kind of having a good camp. So I don't know. Like I can't speak to that. And that's not. Gosh, that's a really hard thing to ask people about.
It feels like you're talking about facts. You're talking about Burke being behind Sorrell as a fact. Sorrell and Trey Moore kind of being the edges as a fact. Gilbo, but it also sounds like based on this conversation about the defensive tackles, like we had the discussion about Aaron Bryant last week. Kind of being, I would say, quote unquote, a surprise, being on that nose spot on the second team. Last week was Savea next to Savea, and now this week Aaron Bryant's not on that first or second or third team, I should say.
Not today.
Yep. And then that first team was still Broughton and Collins. So
yeah,
Broughton and Collins seems like they're still the tier ahead of the rest of these guys. If they're jumbling around the rest of these guys, and Collins and Broughton are still together, like it doesn't seem like the majority of this group has caught up to Broughton in any way, shape, or form.
For better or for worse, that's exactly right. For better or for worse, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
I think Collins is going to be fine. I still think that Broughton's job can, maybe somebody could take Broughton's job, but like you said, man, I mean, he feels like rock solid, locked in, no messing around. I think what this is like you said, seeing some different bodies out there, because like it was a team period, right? And so we're standing on the sidelines, and I was standing where the defensive line was, rotating in and doing all this stuff like that. And you kind of heard the guys talking as they were as the ones were coming in and the twos were going out and stuff like that. And they would ask each other like is Bill going? Is Bill going? And like I guess they're talking about Norton and it was almost as if the guys who were behind the first two, it's like they're sort of sending out different platoons all the time just to see like what can hit, what can stick. Because dude, they need to find some kind of lightning in a bottle. They need to find some kind of combo there that can create a little alchemy. You know what I mean? Just kind of make something out of nothing and just see if it can just materialize. And so that's what I think's going on. But like I pointed out, it's like, and you can talk to this, Cody. I mean, don't you think that it says something that, we look at I don't have my depth chart pulled up, but I mean, I just know. I mean, if you just think about these dudes, about the interior defensive line guys, and behind Collins and behind Broughton, you have Savea, Lole, Norton, Bryant, Sadir Mitchell, Jerry Bledsoe. Did I say January yet?
It's a whole
January. Melvin Hills.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I don't think that there's any difference between any of those guys behind I'm not. I guess what I'm trying to say is this. I think it's meaningful that you have a guy that's kind of poking his head up and like, what's the groundhog's name in the movie? Where they play the I Got You, Babe, groundhog, Punxsutawney Phil, right? He pokes his head out to see if he sees his shadow. It's like he poked his head up into the two deep. Alex January. You know what I'm saying? It's like, he's actually worked out on the two deep in an actual team drill now. I think that that's somewhat meaningful that a dude a true freshman has come in. You know what I mean? It's clearly really early in camp, but the fact that he's come in and am I crazy to think that that's somewhat meaningful?
No, I think that's a big factor. Ketch brought up a good point today saying like, this is the week where you need to figure out who's who and what's what. Cause Saturdays they got a scrimmage. Right. And I think the big thing that, we got a little bit of intel from the Friday and Saturday practice, but not a ton. And now things are going to start leaking throughout the week, and you're able to tell like maybe what they did work on over the weekend, and that being switching out these platoons on the defensive line. And, there was just to tie it with a couple of quotes that Sark had during the press conference that Anwar made note of was he was crediting the defensive line. He said, we want to make it as hard as we can on our offense, and our defensive front is doing a good job. So clearly he feels however they're doing it when you guys aren't there and they're live or sub live, whatever, these defensive tackles are making noise and the rotation of the platoons is working. So they're just going to continue to play with it. And maybe it is January. Cause look at it height, weight wise, like he's right up there with Alfred Collins. They're both 6'5". Collins is 320. January's 315. Like what if January
it looks like Collins. He's really long. You know what I'm saying? It kind of looks like
January's there. That makes sense. One of the quotes that also they got from Sark discussing the veteran presence on the defensive line, noting the experience of the key players like Broughton and Alfred Collins. Sark praised the development of younger talents like Aaron Bryant. He says, a guy I think made a lot of strides has been Aaron Bryant. He's been very helpful. Obviously, he brings up Colin Simmons. He said he brought up Zena, but then also he talks about guys that have turned the corner, Dre Bledsoe, Alex January, Melvin Hills. Those are three names he brought up on the interior. So Melvin Hills is like definitely one of the guys, or I would say the only guy that we really haven't talked about.
What is Melvin Hills' number? Is he 55 or something?
I was going to say 50 something.
Is he 55? I'll bet you he's 55.
55. Yeah, you're right. 6'3", 55.
Yeah.
So he's like the one guy that we really haven't talked about, but he did catch a little bit of praise. And Sark, I know Sark named off like 6 dudes and he's never going to throw anybody under the bus or anything, but it was interesting. He brought him up. I really just think that kind of like I talked about last week, I made a big point of that in saying that I don't really care who the starting receivers are. I think they're going to all work in and get plenty of work in a multitude of positions. And there's a quote that we'll talk about later about the receivers, but I think it's the same thing for the defensive line. Like outside of Collins and Broughton, who, like we said last week when we looked at last year's snap shares with Sweat and Murphy of all people. Neither of those guys played over 60% snaps. Neither of Collins or Broughton are going to touch that either. And it's going to be very important that they do have these platoons of defensive tackles that they can trust all the way down to January. They can trust, Sadir to come in and get his opportunities in a game. That's going to be a lot of rotation, it sure seems and feels like, among this defensive line. So, I mean, the more that we do see a guy like January pop his head up on that 2 deep, a guy like Bryant pop his head up on that 2 deep like he did last week, who else is going to do it the rest of the year?
Because it's kind of like the devil you don't know, right? It's kind of like, what if it turns out that, like, these other guys, look, I'm not saying Lole can't be good. I'm not saying Savea can't be good. I'm not saying Norton can't be good and they can be serviceable, right? But they've been in college for like 4 or 5 years each, right? Yeah. What if Alex January is a hellraiser? What if that's just in his destiny to be like, all of a sudden we look at it and now he's starting by the time the season starts. And next thing, do you know what I mean? Like that ceiling outcome isn't possible for the other guys. It simply isn't.
I think we got a super chat here, but I did want to say one thing quick, Alex, is 6 months ago, if I would have given you odds on Alex January to start week 1 versus Colin Simmons, what would those odds have been to take out for Colin Simmons?
Yeah, I don't know. Like you could have got me for quite a few Jersey Mike subs, Cody. All right, yeah, let's get to this super chat for sure. And thanks to everybody for, gosh, man, I'm creeping up to over 400 people in the Specs chat line right now, man. We can't thank you guys enough. The reception to the show and the new time has just been incredible, and so we can't we're getting more viewers than ever, and we're hearing such good feedback. And so we can't thank you guys enough. And certainly when you send a super chat, Oscar Elizondo, our guy, soon to be very, very rich. He already seems kind of rich. He's on that doctor path, Cody. Maybe you could tell him how that's going for your wife. It's a little bit of a path until you get super duper rich, but you're going to make it soon enough. All right. Oscar Elizondo, $4.99. Okay, thank you, Oscar. Well, what kind of changes to defensive schematics do y'all think will be implemented because of personnel changes? Also, FWF once a week during off season. Dude, man, we're trying to take this thing big, dude. Like off season, man, we want to be on all of the time, But we'll see what happens. The other question, as far as the defensive schematics, I mean, I think the biggest thing that I've seen change because of the personnel change is it really has a lot to do with the whole deal with Ethan Burke and the fact that he's not playing the buck end anymore and the different type of skill set that a player like Trey Moore brings to that thing. And it's why I think that Justice Finkley is not going to – I don't think that Finkley is going to stay in that role for very much longer. He's been a kind of an undersized, strong side defensive lineman a strong side defensive end that – has always been sort of a tweener between those two that's cross-trained at both those two, the jack and the buck spots, both the weak and the strong side defensive end. The weak side defensive end is a buck. It's more of like a linebacker defensive end hybrid type of player. Yeah. But see, whenever you have a player playing that position like Ethan Burke, he was good last year. He had his moments, right? But it's just a different, maybe I'm not doing a good job explaining this. The actual bodies of guys like Trey Moore and Colin Simmons bring a different and frankly more dynamic skill set. They can do more things, not only with just knifing off the edge and with their natural bend and stuff. Now, neither of those guys has the length of an Ethan Burke, right? But what they do have is more natural explosion, more hip flexion, more ankle flexion, more just natural bend, more just kind of get after the quarterback style. But also, both those guys can drop and cover their butts off, dude. They can, and Ethan Burke is not a guy that you want just, dropping in and like on these, what are these, like these fire blitz stuff, Cody, that you remember from, whenever we used to play, like wherever you have to drop back from a 3-point stance into the curl flat region and stuff like that. That's just a kind of moving in a lot of different directions in a way that I don't really think Ethan Burke, it's not his natural way of moving. It's the way that guys like Trey Moore and Colin Simmons move. And so I think with the kind of personnel change that we're seeing with Sorrell and Burke both playing at the position that I thought Burke grew into last year, and for sure that they were going to be platooning during the spring, which never happened. I think that change specifically is going to be a big one, and it also has the ability to, if you want to get Trey Moore, if you want to get him, at the second level of the defense, you want to play him as an off-ball guy. You can do that and have more of a 3-3-5 sort of look. Those are the things schematically on defense that I feel like will change the most based on the actual personnel, because it's the skill sets of the guys who are playing in those spots. As far as what we see, schematically for everything, I mean, PK is not going to change up what he does on the back end. He's not going to, hopefully with what, they've said that what Johnny Nansen has done since he's gotten here is just really gotten on the linebackers and the secondaries to, just communicate better. Just communicate better. Know what you're doing. Know where you are. Know how your responsibility interplays with the responsibility of the rest. And if they can do that, we won't see complete busts, man, like we did versus Oklahoma, versus Houston, and some of these other spots.
So the player on the graphic tonight, the thumbnail, was Jelani McDonald. We talked about the defensive line. We talked a little bit about the defensive backfield, but I wanted to circle back to it. Before we switch to the secondary, can we just answer this question? Because Football Junkie asked a question about Sorrell and Burke. As long as we're still talking about the ends, Sorrell,
who would you guys start? Yeah, I mean,
every day of the week.
Yeah, I think you can platoon them. Look, man, what it is? Jeez, it's like, who would have thought, man? We got a daily show.
Answer, but he's asking who's going to start, not who's going to rotate. Everybody knows they're going to rotate.
Yeah, well, right. He's not asking who's going to start. He's asking who would you start.
Who would you start? Are you okay, Alex? Are you gonna put half of each one of these guys on the field? You call me a coward for splitting down the middle on some.
You are a coward.
I'll call you a coward for. I don't know who I'm gonna play. Well, like, you gotta have to start one. You're the defensive coordinator.
Yeah, I start Barryn Sorrell. Man, whenever it was at practice. No, it was at practice today, right? And we were just standing there, and like I said, it was kind of when they go to team stuff, the defense is on the side that the media is on, right? And they're right there in front of you. It's just a little practice field, right? And so I was standing next to Jason. He's taking his photos and stuff like that. And like Sorrell was just right there after the ones came off. And Jason just kind of looks at him and Jason just points at him. And I just looked at him. I was like, yeah, and like it was an unspoken thing of like, man, look at Sorrell. He looks really good. He's always seemed to me like he's a little. Hadn't it seemed? Yeah, I mean that kind of, with pads on, to me, he's always had that kind of, like I used to talk about with Blake, that kind of Doberman.
Yep. In the face, yeah. In the overall build, but he also like
the Doberman puppy, right? With the big paws and the kind of, you're just like, I'm not sure he's really developed. I'm not sure he's just put it all together as far as his physical development and stuff. And it feels like, he's at the point now where he's, I say that, dude, these elite football players, man, like they go through like a college puberty all over again when they get into a strength and conditioning program, and then they get their NFL puberty where they just like, you see him and you're like, dude, I saw that guy at the Senior Bowl. It's like looks like he's like 4 years older, and I'm just at training camp 6 months later or whatever, right? It's like Sorrell looks like he's really developed into a different kind of guy, and I think that you just have to also kind of take the wisdom of the crowd sort of thing into it, right? You have to say, well, whenever Coach PK is asked about the edge guys and how you're going to rotate those guys, whenever he says, well, that group is led by Barryn Sorrell, he didn't say that group's led by Trey Moore. He didn't say that group's led by Ethan Burke. He didn't say that group's led by Justice Finkley or Colin Simmons or Zena Muzolo or Justice Finkley or any of the others. He said that group's led by Barryn Sorrell. And so, I mean, I take the fact that, look, from an overall standpoint last year, Ethan Burke was technically more productive than Barryn Sorrell was last year. But he was playing a position that was more conducive for production within my system. You're going to be you're going to be more productive when you're aligned at the weak side defensive end than you are the strong side defensive end, because half the time being a strong side defensive end is a little bit of a thankless job. So the other thing with Sorrell is he had 16 quarterback pressures last year. He just didn't get home. You know what I mean? We talk so much about how much pressure Byron Murphy put on the quarterback. If we just look at Byron Murphy's pressures from last year, Barryn Sorrell had just as many pressures as Byron Murphy. He just didn't get home. What if he gets home on some of those? So I think that I'm going to go with Sorrell, but it's tough, man.
The question isn't is it Sorrell or Burke starting? The question I think is who's the third best defensive lineman? Who's the third best defensive lineman on the team throughout?
On the whole team?
You got Sorrell and Moore. I would put 1, 2.
Yeah, well, that's the first two that my mind went to.
You taking Burke or you taking Collins?
Probably, I don't know. I mean, Alfred Collins is going to be drafted higher than Ethan Burke.
We're not talking about drafted higher. We're talking about milk carton Collins is the only thing we've seen so far, plus a little bit of a spring game.
Burke.
There you go.
Look, man, everybody knows that this defensive line is still everybody. Like, I guess Sark, we're going to go through the press conference here in a minute, but I mean, and he has glowing things to say about him. I get it, but like, let's not act like we haven't been worried about this defensive line, this interior defensive line the whole time.
I do think I think as a whole, we've gotten pretty confident in what Collins is. Like, I think the majority of people have gotten pretty confident being like, yep, this guy's going to be a very dependable plug-in. He's like, it's like, oh, is one of these guys going to beat out Broughton? Like, it's just a given that Collins is going to be good. I'm not saying he's going to be bad by any means. I think he's obviously got all the tools to get drafted and move have his stock rise a considerable amount with a good season. And he had a great spring game, but we haven't seen it in a game.
We've seen little flashes, and we've seen flashes of it, right? We just we have, but what we have not seen is consistent. You know, dude. I think the coaching staff would be the first to tell you that they want him to be more consistent, right? What are you gonna do though? Go around the whole time complaining about the guy? Yeah, you know what I mean. They're like, you're gonna have him this year, and he has high NFL upside. You gotta coach those guys up. It's to me, it's a very simple thing. It's like it's as simple as making just an easy choice to eat better beef. It really is a really, really simple choice to just say, dude, I'm done going to the grocery store and eating this beef where it's like, I don't know where it comes from. It's certainly not local. It doesn't even taste that good. It looks too weird. The colors are the colors of it. It's like, why is it not dark red? Why is it pink? Where is it even from? Where does this come from? Have you tried Texas Beef Traders? Have you been by there yet? No vaccines, no mRNA nonsense, no steroids or injections of any kind, no unnecessary anything, no GMOs. This is grass-fed beef that's finished off with like mash from like the bourbons and stuff like that. They go to grocery stores and they take their produce that's about to go bad and feed these things a bunch of bananas and like watermelons. They have bovine nutritionists on staff right there in Mason, Texas. These cattle, they eat better than your pet probably does. And that's the food that you put into your body. What you're putting in right now, I hate to say it, but man, if it's from the grocery store, to say that the beef comes from the USA, all it has to be is processed at HEB's plant right down there in San Antonio. That meat can come from Venezuela or whatever. They can say product of the USA because it was processed here, right? Go to Texas Beef Traders. It's cheaper. It's better. It's better for you. It tastes delicious, and the Texas Beef Traders, they're such great people. If you go in there on a Friday, a Saturday, or a Sunday, a little bit more in the afternoon, they're gonna give you a beer. They're gonna ask if you're hungry. Now they're gonna have football on. They'll just cook you up a steak. They'll let you try the food. They'll give you a burger, a sausage wrap, something like that, man. I'm telling you, go up there in the afternoons. Just trust me on this. And listen, I know not everybody can make it into Lakeway. I get it, but here's the good news. Go to TexasBeefTraders.com. Look on there. You get 10% off by telling them that you heard from them here. and just make an order, get the best beef of your life, and they'll just bring it to your house. There's no excuses for this guy. Like, please go to Texas Beef Traders. All right. Let's see here. We have what were we going to talk about again?
Let's go to the defensive backfield before we jump into these.
Almost 500 people in the Specs chat line, Cody. Can you believe this? It's just things are going gangbusters around here. We cannot thank you guys enough. If you could please remember to like the show, subscribe to the channel. We would certainly appreciate that. And just remember, we're going to be here every day, 6 p.m. No fluff, no nothing, man. We just get right down to football. So thank you guys for being here. Again, thanks to Texas Beef Traders and, of course, Specs for providing the Specs chat line.
Specs same-day delivery can save the day with our Specs app or online shopping. From world-class wines to hard-to-find spirits and craft beers to gourmet foods, delicious snacks, and spectacular sweets. It's Specs. Cheers to savings.
All right, Cody. Didn't mean to cut you off with that Specs bunny. I was at the liquor store with my kids. Whether was that earlier today? It might have been yesterday. No one yesterday. Anyway, my son was, you take your kids to Specs too much. If they ask if there was a what did my son say? Oh, is that a bunny discount or whatever? Sometimes there's like the little bunny on there, and we always buy extra stuff when the little bunny's on there. And my son asked if the tequila that I was buying had a bunny discount. Anyway,
teaching them young.
Yes. What's up next?
I want to go back to the defensive backfield.
Right.
We talked about Makuba and Derek Williams being on the second team, Jelani and Taft being on the first team. But I want to ask about the cornerbacks because it was Muhammad and Gavin Holmes the last time we talked running with that first team. Was that the same duo that you saw with the first team with Jelani McDonald and Michael Taft?
Yeah. And Jalen Gilbo.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, you've said that, but I wanted to make sure that the outside guys.
I don't think
we didn't see any Jade Barryn, or we didn't see any, Javion Cole or anything else like this working in there. Because that would have kind of like the same conversation about the defensive line, about receiver, about safety, like trying out these different platoons, trying out these different combinations. But at the cornerback position, if it's just Gavin Holmes, day after day after day, it's got to be telling at a certain point.
I haven't seen Javion Cole do that Punxsutawney Phil on the old depth chart to the twos yet. I haven't seen it.
It's a big week for Javion Cole.
Yeah, man. I think it is. And I don't have that good of an opinion on him yet because today offensively, from what we were able, let's talk about the offense in a second, just what the offense is doing in 2 minutes. But as far as the DBs, so yeah, you had 2 and 4 with that group. You have oh man, who did I even write down here? So one of the corners with that second group was 24. Oh, 6. Kobe Black. So 24 and 6 were the corners.
That's Robertson.
I always, dude, why do I get Roberson and Wardell Mack mixed up all the time? I guess it's the war.
They're also the exact same size.
Yeah, and one's 24 and one's 27. Dude, they look just alike, like standing next to one another. It was those guys, and then Leonga Lafau, Maurice Blackwell, all the same stuff, right? Just the thing with Makuba and Derek Williams. And I thought I'd get to thinking to myself, okay, there's a Jade Barryn kind of conversation here. Like, what's going on with it?
He was second team corner, right?
No, second team nickel.
Second team. Okay.
It's different than being third team nickel.
Well, yeah.
Look, and we talked about this on Friday, and you guys can go back and listen to the Friday show about. I had texted with a text.
But also, Jelani was the nickel at that point last week when he was third team nickel.
Jelani was working both at safety. So okay, after Taft got a green jersey, they had Jelani.
They put Makuba.
Jelani McDonald had to go back to playing. I forgot how that all worked.
Oh, you said no. You said Taft was out. Makuba went in. with Derek Williams.
Yeah. That was on Friday.
Yeah, and then but the first day it was Jade third team nickel, Jelani second team nickel.
That's right.
And now Jelani is first team safety, and Jade goes up to second team nickel.
And it's just it's weird. I don't understand.
I think they're just literally trying to finger pieces out, and like the depth. I think the depth conversation is another massive piece that they've said. Like, we know we could potentially play 16 games. Like, we need to know we have depth for the length. Like, if I'm not going to name any names, but blank gets hurt, blank injures a knee, blank injures this. Like, you need to be able to know, bang, this guy's going to be able to step up. And I think that's, of course, what fall camp is built for. But getting guys ready in different spots, like Jelani, like, getting him as much as you can get a Jelani, as much as you can get an Aaron Bryant, Alex January, Mo Blackwell, Phil Simay, like these guys on that second team. I think that's massive for your long-term depth in season.
Doing the Punxsutawney Phil up to the starters. That's a bigger deal than doing it up onto the 2 deep, Cody. It means something, and I think we're gonna have to have an uncomfortable conversation here. That for your guy Andrew Makuba, and I'm just starting to think it's like look. No, just let me
still the 13. That's your boy. What are we doing here?
Let me just say my piece, and then I'll let you respond. I think that okay. There's no way that Jelani McDonald is going to play ahead of Derek Williams. Derek Williams is very, very good. Everybody knows it.
Yeah,
like. The staff knows it. I've talked about it a million times, but even do you remember in the college football playoff game, whenever they got him back for the second half of the game, and Greg McElroy was the announcer, and he'd been at production meetings all week with the team, right? And whenever they kind of pan the defense and stuff, he says, "Oh, like number 2, Derek Williams is back in." Well, look, that's their best cover safety. Like blah blah blah. It's like, where did he get that? It's not like that guy doesn't sit around grinding film of this team every game that they've played. And I'm like, no, man, the coach told him that in a production meeting. So it isn't just my eyeballs. It's not just your eyeballs. It's not just he was a great recruit, all the rest. Like, he is. So whenever you put Jelani McDonald in with the first group and you put him in over Derek Williams, well, you think to yourself, well, what does that mean? And to me, what that means is this. And I love Michael Taft, Westlake Chaparral. Okay. What does that mean when you really have to go in the portal so hard after Andrew Makuba? What does that mean about the way that you feel about these safeties? And now, look, we know that it's addition by subtraction whenever you lose the guys like the Keaton Crawfords and the Jaron Thompsons and these kinds of players. What's the guy you were texting me about earlier? You were texting me something about Jalen Catalon earlier. Something about some.
I sent you some film on Jalen Catalon being the softest safety I've seen in the last 10 years as he tried to fill a gap last year.
But you did get a new All-22 plug?
I got the All-22 plug, and I'm not going to share it on the line, but I'm going to share it after we get off.
You got a new All-22 plug, man. You got to let me know, brother. Come on. Anyway, so Catalon, right? These guys didn't play well at all, right? And so you knew you needed numbers at safety, but it was also, it's like, look, Taft was good last year. He's Johnny on the spot. He's good. I think people will look at him and say, you know what? He's really not that fast, but he always kind of ends up on the right spot. He's one of the best, ask Jeff Banks about this guy, and he's just effusive in his praise. It's Mo Blackwell. It is Michael Taft, right? On special teams, they're the identity of everything, right? So with that being said, they thought Makuba could be an improvement on Michael Taft. And here's the uncomfortable part, is Makuba hasn't been able to beat out Michael Taft. Jelani McDonald's a super talented guy. He's really young. He's really athletic. He's done some nice things. They like him both at nickel and at safety. If they like him at nickel, that means at practice he's doing one thing that's super important for both those positions. And one thing that Sark considers literally, how much Sark talks how much Sark talks about culture? Do you know how much he talks about culture?
Yep.
It's all he talks about.
And that's what Taff is.
Yes, but he's also said culture is not just in the locker room and stuff. Culture is things you do on a football field. Culture is flying to the football and breaking up screen passes, being a sure tackler on those kinds of things, right? If these are the kinds of things that they're seeing out of Jelani McDonald, and they wouldn't have been playing him at nickel if he wasn't doing those things. That's like the number one thing is you need to be a sure open field tackler against these open field outside bubble screens as a nickel corner. You just have to be. You also need to be able to do that as a safety. We've heard Coach PK say, dude, if we were better tacklers last year, we wouldn't have been so-and-so as far as how bad we were as far as the pass defense, yada, yada, yada. He thinks that some of this stuff wasn't even coverage. He thinks it was tackling. If they put Jelani McDonald in those positions, and we know that they have because they've had him play the position where that's the most important characteristic, well, what if they think, let's get a look at Jelani McDonald with the ones, and let's put him out there with Taff, and let's not make it seem like we're just, but what if we could, I close my eyes and I think, oh my gosh, what would Derek Williams and Jelani McDonald look like back there together? That's a couple of prowlers, dude.
Yeah. Some Adonises. I mean, I would love to see Jelani. I mean, the Taft thing's tough because it's like he's, like you said, it's the physically imposing part. You're like, man, this guy really like this team's, and then he goes out there and it's like pick. Like
runs it back for a touchdown, and then, it's just so wild.
I think that's the part where they're like, well, we should go out and get this guy. And Mukuba starts 3 years at Clemson. It's like you would think he would come in and be able to beat out Michael. You would think, again, no disrespect to Michael Taff, you would think he'd be able to come in and beat out Michael Taff, but he can't. And the McDonald part is definitely fascinating, though. In context of the safety conversation that we're having, as well as the nickel conversation with Gilbo and Barryn. Like, it's just everyone's worried about the back end after last year, and they're talking about coaches being on hot seats and stuff. And I get that, but like, look at the conversation we're having right now about the talent that's here.
Oh, there's a hot seat conversation. For Terry Joseph
and Gideon.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. And like
those conversations have been occurring.
Correct. But this is my point. It's like, look at the conversation that's really happening, though. It's like Mukuba, who was a 3-year starter at Clemson, who was not a slouch, and it was good. Like, he was good. He's also voted second team all SEC preseason. Like, he's very good, but he can't beat out Taff, and he can't beat out, or he's in competition with McDonald. I think it shows you the growth and depth of the defensive backfield as well as, not even safety, but also like we talked about nickel.
I just saw a super chat. I got it as soon as it popped up. That's how quick I am, Cody. Can you believe that? S Rowan 45. Can you believe how quick I was on the trigger there? Dude, he put that thing up and I went boom, boom, just right up. Okay, super chat. Thank you so much, S Rowan 45. And thanks to all, 600 people in the chat right now, man. Wow. We are so thankful for you guys tuning in, man. We can't thank you all enough. And for the people that tune in after the show. I get done with the show and we look and see how many views there are. And then I'll wake up the next morning. I'll be like, oh my God, look at all these views. So thanks to everybody who watches it. We truly, when we say thank you, we can't tell you how much we appreciate it. And we certainly appreciate it when you like the show, subscribe to the channel, and also send us these super chats. Mukuba not as good, or are DBs just better?
I'll answer first. I think it's the maturation of the DBs. I think McDonald and Taff have continued to mature, which as a staff, you have to always be looking ahead and say, what if these guys don't mature? And I think that's why they went out and got the Mukuba factor, because they're like, we know we need to improve on the back end. And it just happens to be that Mukuba might be right here, but then these guys just caught up to him and or are ahead of him because they have the system already down. So that's what I'll go with. I'll go with these guys just caught up to him.
I think it could be just, I'm not going to say Makuba's bad. I'm not going to say that he's not as good. I think that they brought him in for a reason. I do think I think it's fair to say it's probably a little bit disappointing for that guy that he wasn't starting the minute he got here.
Correct. 100 has to be. These guys, none of these alpha types are going to be, oh, I'm, not starting. Like, yeah, like, what if Isaiah Bond was on the second team? You think he'd be happy? No. Like, I think it goes the same way with Makuba.
Yeah, but during spring, because Trey Moore wasn't working with the ones in the spring, right? And Makuba wasn't either. And some of these dudes, they say like, well, man, Black still isn't.
Yep.
That guy's we can talk about that guy. I mean, it's that whole thing too. He's going to need to beat out Juan Davis the same way that Makuba is going to need to beat out all these dudes, right? But anyway, that's a whole nother conversation. But I don't think Makuba's bad. So I think that, yeah, it's the Texas. You guys have seen Derek Williams. You probably haven't seen quite as much Jelani McDonald unless you're just and look, if you're watching this, you're there. Well, all right. Well, there. I'm not even sure that gives perspective to how long his arms are, though. He's a very, very, very good look. I mean, if you have those two guys that's like having a couple of jungle cats prowling back there in the back end of the defense, dude. They can chew you up, but they can also pounce on you. Really, really long. And that dude, they're fast, but they're really long, dude. And football really is the game of inches, right? It really is. It's called that for a reason, man. Like any extra, that's why you get, it's why they measure your wingspan, right? And why they look at the length of your stride and stuff like that, man. Having that length on the back end, it can help you. So look, I don't think Jelani McDonald's a starting safety for Texas right now. Could he become one? Maybe. Is it significant that he was out there with the ones today? Well, of course. Anytime there's a dude working in with the ones, it means they're working in with the ones. That's a big deal. And it's just up to us to kind of, with the limited bit of information that we have and the sources we have and the little bit of practice we're able to see and stuff, it's our job to sort of piece together this information and try to make sense of it.
Will you be back at practice tomorrow, or they have practice tomorrow?
We haven't got an email yet, so I'm guessing not. It's gonna be something we're gonna have to just dig around and see what kind of info we can find, and between all of us, we should be able to get some something out of it. But I'm hoping we get an email saying, yeah, dude, tomorrow, same time, whatever. I'm not gonna get on the whole media thing.
Last question, because this was an early morning practice. Did Sadir look maybe a little different? Did he look like
fine? Dude, I think yes, he looks good. Dude, he looks good.
I know. I get that. You've been saying you're liking the kind of the step he's taking forward, but it's also a 9 a.m. practice versus a 2:30 practice on that in that heat. Like, is there any truth to that factor? Because Sark has brought it up before. He's like, those midday practices aren't great for guys like that. Like, was there anything like, I don't know, I'm kind of like trying to dig a little deeper than probably most people care to, but could you tell any more of a pep in a step?
I mean, it was, yeah. I mean, I would say general. I mean, as you know, it's always a little cooler in the morning than it is at 2:30. But no, I think that I think Sadir Mitchell looks really good. I think that there's probably some lagging concerns that the staff still has because of the fact that he hasn't been in good condition. I think his condition is getting better and better and better.
That's good. No, that's good.
Yeah. So there's a question in the chat from Football Junkie. He says, how well do the linebackers run in person and how do they look physically, guys? Okay, so I'm going to say, for one, Anthill is one of the best linebackers. I mean, one of the best linebackers I've seen at Texas, right? But if you want to just hear about the linebacker, it felt like the linebackers today, and this is a good way to transition to talking about how the 2-minute offense looked. So with the first group, okay, so the wide receivers, when they go to 12 personnel, that 12 personnel is Juan Davis and Gunnar Helm with the two tight ends, and it is Isaiah Bond and Jonte Cook at the wide receivers. When they go to 11 personnel, that is Gunnar Helm in there at tight end, and that is Jonte Cook, DeAndre Moore in the slot, and Isaiah Bond outside. With the second group, that is Silas Bolden outside, Matthew Golden in the slot, and Ryan Wingo outside in 11 personnel with Amari Nyblack at the tight end. All right. So with both groups, right, you got to see a whole lot of speed on the outside. And Cody, they were blasting the tempo. I mean, they were just blasting it. I've never seen, if they run tempo like this in games this year, I'm going to be so tilted doing the deep dig because this could be 100 plays. Like, I think this is very kind of 2-4 minute stuff, but not too much down the field stuff. But they created a whole lot of space getting the balls out on these bubbles to Bond, getting them out to Jonte Cook. And dude, when these guys get the ball in his hands, it was more obvious. Look, with the second group, when they get the ball like Silas Bolden and some of these dudes on the outside, you can like Lafau has a hard, like he's not as fast. Blackwell's fast, but I'll tell you this, Anthony Hill and David Benda, as fast as Anthony Hill is, they were that kind of outside game, that side-to-side game, it was making them give a whole lot of sideline-to-sideline effort, and that was the thing where they were saying, like, "Hey, man, like that pursuit, you guys need to get there faster and stuff." They look, Ant Hill looks like Ant Hill, and the good news I think David Benda looks like David Benda. I think that the foot speed thing might be a little bit more of an issue with Leonga Lafau than anybody else within that group. We all know that Maurice Blackwell's fast. Yeah. But I think that this is good for Anthony Hill playing in these kinds of spots, because having the receivers on the out, it's just different whenever you had Worthy last year, right? And that's a world-class bit of speed, but it's like Adonai Mitchell on the other side wasn't somebody that you could just go from one side to the other and bubble, up tempo, all this. And you really have two guys that are super, super dynamic, ball in the hand, shifty dudes. Whereas last year, Adonai Mitchell, he ran really fast, but it was weird. We asked him at the combine, he'd say, like, I didn't run routes full. Like, I've never run routes full speed. That's why you didn't think I was 4.3. It's like he just didn't. That he was the big X wide receiver, right? So I think it's good for Ant Hill that he's that in practice he's getting stressed by because look, in the SEC you're going to face a bunch of teams like this. So I think that they look. I think they look good. I think today they did get stressed a little bit by the speed and the tempo, and it's just the spread nature of that 2 and 4 minute offense.
I know we got a super chat, but I'm just going to read a quote from Sark because it ties right in with what you just said about Anthony Hill. They asked him about kind of his, how he plays defense, his aggression, his downhill mentality. Sark said, "I think Anthony Hill provides a different aspect for our defense in the middle of our defense as well." Sark said, "Jalen Ford was a great player for 3 years. Take nothing away from his opportunistic ball skills, but Anthony definitely has a little bit of a different mindset, a downhill mentality. He's a striker." That was his thought. And I mean, you're talking about Jalen Ford, who was Big 12 Player of the Year.
And to be honest, that's kind of not how I would really characterize him, but I'll take Sark's word for it. I think he's a striker, but I also think he's a slasher and a ripper too, man. I think he can bend the edge and do all kinds of things. You know what I mean? I don't think he's just a downhill guy. And I know just from hearing Anthony Hill talk just during his recruiting and stuff like that, that's, he envisions himself as more of an all-around kind of player. And I know that that's how he's going to be, because, dude, they're going to use him like they used Jacob Manu at Arizona last year. Mm-hmm. And can you imagine if he gets put in the same positions as Jacob Manu? Just imagine the stats that he's going to put up, because Manu is very limited physically.
How many tackles did he have last year? I want to say
like 3,048 and a bunch of sacks. And like Manu's everywhere, dude. And it's the exact same position, but he's not as physically gifted a person. I remember we were on the modcast and Travis Gailey said that he was watching the college Final Four and Arizona was playing, and he saw Manu walk in there, and he's like, "Dude, Manu's got a beer gut." We're like, "Travis, you stand up and show us off your gut here on the modcast, man. You're gonna make fun of Manu like this?" But but he is a dude that's like, he's more. He had
7 sacks last year.
What?
Manu had 7 sacks last year
from an off-ball middle linebacker.
which is crazy.
Yes, dude. Like, dude, Anthony Hill's going to go bananas. All right, we got a final super chat here before we let you guys get back to it and go have dinner and see your families and, you know, pets or friends or whatever you got going on. Chad Gibson, thank you, my friend. We can't tell you how much we appreciate. Oh gosh, almost 700 of you guys in the chat right now. $4.99. Great show, fellas. We all explain the difference between the two safety positions. Are free and strong terms still used? Thanks, guys. Okay, well, it's my impression of this group that it's, you know, it's interesting the way that they do it. They have one guy that's like a boundary safety and one guy that's like a field safety, right? And one of them, you can think of the boundary safety as more like a strong safety, and the field safety is more like a free safety. But the interesting thing about it is, and I haven't quite put my finger on exactly how they do this, and I chart every single play, but so like the boundary is the short side of the field, right? And and so like Michael Taft plays like boundary safety, right? You don't want him playing field safety where he's got to run and cover the whole wide side of the football field, right? You got a big, long, fast dude like Derek Williams who can do things like that. But interestingly, they don't always switch, and you guys will know this, they don't always switch from side to side as the hash marks change. So it's the same with the corners. They don't always. Sometimes they do, and I don't know what I haven't cracked the code. Whether it depends on certain receivers they're facing versus certain packages they're facing versus certain calls that I just don't understand because I never played DB, right? But they start out and one guy plays the boundary. One guy's to the boundary. He's on the short side of the field, and one guy is to the field. He's on the wide side of the field, and often they'll just stay on that side, even as the hash marks change. Like all of a sudden, you will start off on the boundary, and you're over here on the offense's left, and the offense runs the ball to the right, and now they're on the new hash marks, and you started on the boundary, but now you're on the field side. Sometimes they'll switch, but sometimes they won't. But that's at least how they always start series. I hope that helps. It's not an expert explanation at all, but I don't think they call them free and strong. I think they call them boundary and field. Cody, anything else you want to get to, brother?
That's it, man. Just remember, you got a couple hours left to go over to Orange Bloods. Join OB24. Scan that QR code. 60 days free. You literally have with like 3 hours to go sign up here. Alex, Anwar, Jason all have updates from practice today. Catch has his top 10 thoughts still up. I'm going to drop my projections either tomorrow morning or Wednesday morning. Everything over there at Orange Bloods. Big show, Alex.
Big show. Now, you can email me, alex@rosterwatch.com. You can follow us on X at Alex Dunlap NFL, at Cody Carpentier. Again, you can find all of our Longhorns content over at orangebloods.com. We actually have a bunch of fantasy content, Cody and I do. If you want to follow us on our Roster Watch YouTube channel or check us out over there at rosterwatch.com for your upcoming fantasy drafts. We're going to be talking a little bit more fantasy in the month of August. Not mainly the back end of shows. We'll always lead with Longhorns and stuff, but we do have a lot of different things happening in the fantasy streets right now. So stay tuned for that. Stay tuned for more practice stuff tomorrow. We didn't even get to the Sark press conference. I want to break down some of that.
Let's talk about offense today.
Yeah, we got a bunch to get to. We only have an hour to get into it, but we can't thank you enough for making us part of your day, giving us a little bit of your time. It means the world to us. It wouldn't be a show without you guys in the chat, man. So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.